Welcome back, everybody, to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name is Jeffrey Davis, and we are still streaming stories every day on the new economy. And we can be heard, and my next guest can be heard every day on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and our Radio Entrepreneurs website. That's quite a list. For my next guest, that's Marc Z, the fabulous Marc Z, and this is one of those Marc Z moments. Welcome back, Marc.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be here. Great to collaborate with you and discuss very relevant and timely issues that affects the employment marketplace.
I'm almost as good as your wife. I could say Marc so many times in one sentence, and you are actually with me listening.
I'm become a better listener.
So Marc, what jewels do you have to share with us today?
Well, Jeff, as you know, we're getting very close to Thanksgiving, which means we're toward the end of the year in the planning stage of a lot of corporations and law firms when executives and attorneys are really planning in terms of where their firms are going to go in the next quarter. And we're at a time now where there's talk about vaccines in the last few days with 94% effective rates. A lot of firms are talking about at least by the spring, trying to have some kind of regular employment mix in terms of regularity, in terms of attendance, in terms of people coming to the office on a much more substantial basis than they do now. Right now, basically all the big firms have maybe partners and associates coming in only on a needed basis. They're not having anybody come in if they don't have to. So I talk to a lot of associates and partners. Some associates haven't been in since the spring. Some partners go in once or twice a week, but everything else is totally remote. Staffing in terms of firms and in terms of companies, it's still basically remote. I mean, a lot of the small firms are saying, well, people could come in 2 or 3 days a week. They're watching their numbers. But in the next quarter is a plan to have people come back on a regular basis, or a plan regularly scheduled everybody. So firms are looking at that because there's an end game in terms of vaccines. There's an end game in terms of when COVID will be somewhat controlled. And it's a planning stage that corporations and law firms should be aware of. And candidates, if people looking at opportunities, know the next quarter is going to be a big quarter.
That's interesting that, you talk about planning to come back because, since culture is the #1 indicator of success, and, most firms have been able to adapt that had a good culture during this economy. And you look at surveys, especially of millennials and, let's say, baby boomers, and both groups don't want to go back more than they do. And I think that leaders of these law firms that are looking at culture and building sustainable law firms should be looking at alternative structures moving forward that are more permanent. And I'm not sure some of them do, because they are by nature traditionalists, the people who are running those firms, and you don't want them to become out of alignment with the way their firms are thinking.
Correct. I mean, you got to think it's been 6 months now since March, and a lot of people are getting used to working remotely. Now, those same groups of people don't want to work remotely every day once they come back, if they're given the green light in terms of safety. But a lot of the people that have now had a taste of working remotely and being productive have arguments to the firm, especially partners and associates. Look at my productivity. Yes, the culture is so important. That's what keeps people together, and you've got to have that. But I have to think, even though a lot of the firms are not actively talking about it, as well as some of the companies, although companies have been, we have a number of clients way pre-COVID, especially the technology companies and the biopharmers. They've had people work remotely on a regular basis for a long time. So it's the law firms. you know.
I can make the argument that I'm more productive since COVID because I'm able to see more clients in a day, give them more relevant, not give them more relevant data, but they're more willing to listen to change data than they would have been, let's say, a year ago. And, you know, let's pick on you particularly, you know, the Supreme Highness, Mrs. Z, she's working from her home office. And I am assume, knowing her, you know, of her national reputation, that she's as productive or more productive than ever before too. And why make a change?
Right. I mean, she is as productive as she would ever be, but she also does miss the culture and the bonding. So at some point, when they do go back, I think there has to be a balance between, it's not all or nothing. It has to be, you know what, let's come in, you know, a couple of days a week or whatever, because we have meetings and productivity, but there are other things that can be done remotely. So I agree with you. There's going to be a realignment in a lot of companies and a lot of law firms based on the data you're talking about in terms of people's productivity.
And my advice would be that sometimes slower is faster, since a lot of these tests have not been on pregnant women or young children. You know, we haven't had it, and we know that not everybody's going to want to, just like the flu shot, get you know, get the the shot. So, I mean, I think that law firms in particular, that's who you were talking about, and service firms should have, let's say, a plan for the next year and then look at it after that. So that would be my advice. But again, Marc Z, you're always relevant to what we want to discuss. If someone's looking for you, how would they find you?
First of all, they should go to our website, marczlegal.com, MarczLegal.com. Google Marc Z, MARC, the letter Z, and then 617-338-1300.
Well, Marc, you know, I look forward to seeing you. This is my one up, you know, since the COVID, this is the only way I get to see you. We look forward to seeing you again next week on Radio Entrepreneurs.